It was past midnight when the phone rang. I didn't need to look at the screen. I already knew it was her. My mother's voice came through like a slow-motion wreck, breathy and cracked. "We're going to lose the house." That was the first sentence. No greeting, no preamble, just collapse. I sat up on the edge of my bed, one hand still gripping the sheet like it might hold me back from something I couldn't see yet. "What happened?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, the sound of her sobs filled the line, and somewhere in the background, I thought I heard my sister's voice. Calm, unbothered. "It's your father," she finally said. He invested in something again. A friend's company. It didn't work out. We owe $280,000. I closed my eyes. I could already feel my throat drying. "Again?" "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "They're going to take the house." I could have said a lot of things, that it wasn't my fault, that I didn't ask to be their safety net, that this wasn't the first time they'd come running to me when the floor started cracking under their own feet, but I didn't. "Let me see what I can do," I said, and that was the first lie. 2 weeks later, I stood in my empty apartment, scanning the walls that once held my quiet peace. My lease wasn't even a year old. The real estate market was shaky, but I sold fast, too fast, lost 20 grand in the process. Didn't matter. They needed saving. Again. My realtor looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Are you absolutely sure?" I smiled, thin, hollow. "It's family. They'd do the same for me." But in the quiet of that final night, sitting on my mattress before the movers came, I caught myself whispering, would they really? The morning I moved back into the family house in Bourne, nothing felt like home. Same white fence, same creaky gate. But something in the air felt claimed. No one thanked me. Not my mother. Not my sister. No one said, "We're glad you're here." I walked in with my bags and a bruised bank account, and it was like I'd never left, but not in the comforting way. Marisol had taken the master bedroom. Again, not a word. Blythe turned to me with a cheerful tone that didn't match her eyes and said, "You can set up in the laundry room for now. We just need to get a few things sorted." The room was barely 8 feet wide, and the smell of fabric softener soaked into the walls. And then came the chores. "You're home all day anyway, right?" Marisol asked one morning as she handed me a laundry basket stacked like a tower. "Would you mind throwing these in?" I didn't answer. I just took the basket and nodded, but something inside me snapped quiet. It wasn't the first time she'd passed me off as invisible. It just felt heavier now, like it was becoming permanent. A week later, I walked through downtown Bourne and found a delicate Japanese tea set tucked in the corner of an antique store, pale blue with hand-painted cranes. My mother always loved things like that, said they reminded her of her grandmother's dishes. I bought it without thinking, had it gift-wrapped with a gold ribbon. The birthday lunch was held at the house. 12 people, some I hadn't seen in years. I watched as my mother opened gift after gift, and then, there it was, my tea set, already unwrapped, already sitting on the table. "Oh, Marisol," she beamed, touching the rim of the cup. "You always know exactly what I like. So thoughtful." My fork trembled in my hand, but I didn't say a word. I smiled, nodded, pretended I hadn't been the one who'd spent 2 hours choosing that exact set. They didn't forget. They rewrote. After that day, I started seeing it everywhere. People commenting online, under Marisol's posts, "You're the rock of the family. You've always held everyone together." Held everyone together, I thought. I sold my apartment. I paid the debt. I moved into a laundry room, but I said nothing. Maybe they remembered things differently. Maybe memory was just a matter of who spoke louder, more often. Still, in the quiet of one night, after everyone had gone to sleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table, lights off, just me and the hum of the refrigerator. And I said it out loud, just once, just to hear it. "They're not forgetting me. They're deleting me." Late afternoon, I was out front fixing a broken garden post. The kind of thing no one notices until it leans the wrong way. I'd been pulling weeds and straightening edges, not because I was told to, just because it was the only way to feel like I existed here. A white SUV pulled up to the curb. A woman in a polo shirt stepped out, clipboard in hand. Hi there. She smiled, scanning the yard. I just wanted to drop by and say the place looks fantastic. Marisol has such great taste. I wiped my hands on my jeans, heart pausing. I'm the one maintaining the yard. She blinked, puzzled. Oh, well, either way, tell your sister it's really coming along. The HOA appreciates it. She drove off without asking my name. When I walked back to the front door, I saw it, mounted just below the porch light. A new nameplate. Black brushed metal, gold engraving. The Vale family. It hadn't been there yesterday. I ran my fingers across the lettering like I was checking if it was glued on or burned in. Inside, I found Mom setting the table. "What's this?" I asked, jerking a thumb back toward the door. She didn't look up. "Marisol's the one building a family here now." I wanted to laugh. I didn't. I stood there, the words pressing on my chest like a hand. I remembered being 16, painting that same door with Dad. I picked the color. He said, "Make it feel like home." It didn't anymore. Sunday came. Church. The first time in months I agreed to go back with them. I sat at the end of the pew while the pastor thanked the community for donations toward the renovation. A deacon passed out flyers, lists of names, supporters, patrons. I scanned for mine. Marisol Vale Kavanaugh, printed in bold, right near the top. I kept looking, front and back. I'd donated. Nearly 10% of the sale from my apartment. I used to walk these halls as a kid. Used to sit on the far left corner beside the stained glass dove and whisper prayers I wasn't sure anyone heard. Now I wasn't even on the list. "She's always been the golden one," someone whispered behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't blink. Just folded the flyer in half and placed it back in the tray like it had nothing to do with me. Back at the house, I stopped in the living room on my way to the laundry room. A new photo hung above the mantel, freshly framed. Everyone was in it. Mom, Marisol, her fiancé, even Uncle Dan from Houston, who only shows up when cameras do. Everyone but me. I stared at the photo like it was a stranger's family reunion. "When was this?" I asked. Mom walked in, wiping her hands with a towel. "Oh, that? Just something quick. You were out running errands. We didn't think you'd want to be in it." "Right," I said. "Wouldn't want to ruin the symmetry." She didn't catch the sarcasm. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. That night, I sat alone in the laundry room, the place I now called a bedroom, rereading HOA documents I'd found in the kitchen drawer. My name wasn't anywhere, not on the mailbox, not on the bills, not on the church flyer, not even in the photo hanging above the fireplace in a house I helped save. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd replaced me. I pulled out my old notebook from a box under the utility sink. Wrote one sentence. "If your name isn't written anywhere, do you even exist in their world?" I didn't cry. Not this time. I closed the notebook, lifted the loose floorboard behind the water heater, and slid it in like a relic. One day, maybe someone would find it. Maybe they'd know I was here. When I got back to the laundry room, something smelled different. It wasn't the usual mix of dryer sheets and mildew. There was a strong cologne in the air, something musky and bold. The kind of scent you don't forget once it settles in fabric. My toothbrush was gone. Just gone. I checked the small basket where I kept it, and instead, there was a men's razor. On the pillow I'd been sleeping on for weeks, a dent I hadn't made, and the faint smell of that same cologne. I didn't ask. I gathered my things quietly. Toothbrush, deodorant, the pair of shoes I kept under the water heater. I tucked them into a plastic grocery bag and slid it under my old suitcase, the one I never fully unpacked. They didn't move me out. They just moved someone else in. Later that evening, after they'd finished dinner and I'd scraped together something cold from the back of the fridge, I asked the question like it was no big deal. "Is Dominic staying here now?" My mother barely looked up. "He's around," she said. "I didn't know he'd be using my room." "You're barely here anyway," she replied, setting her fork down like the conversation was over. Marisol chimed in from across the table, voice syrupy and soft. "You said you didn't mind." "I never said that." "You have the laundry room," she added. "It's not like you have guests." I stood still for a second, hands pressed to the back of the kitchen chair. "I'm not invisible," I said, calm, even. Then I walked out. I didn't slam anything. I didn't throw a tantrum. but something in me hardened, sharp and quiet. 2 days later, I got a notification from a friend on Facebook. Someone had tagged me in an album titled Family BBQ last Sunday. I hadn't been there. I opened the album anyway. Picture after picture of smiling faces, my mom, Marisol, Dominic, friends from church, aunts I hadn't spoken to in years. They posed by the grill, the garden I'd replanted, the new patio furniture. One photo caught me off guard. I was barely visible in the background, carrying trash to the bins, my face cropped out by a filter frame shaped like a heart. Underneath, someone had commented, "Marisol, you've always been the one to hold this family together." I didn't comment. I didn't call anyone. I just took a screenshot and saved it to a folder on my laptop I'd labeled Keep. That night at dinner, no one spoke to me. Not a single question about my day. Not a glance. They laughed about a new recipe. Talked about how peaceful the house felt lately. I chewed slowly, swallowed without tasting anything. My father once told me, the worst kind of loneliness is being surrounded by people who act like you're not there. He wasn't wrong. I left the table early, my plate still half full. Back in the laundry room, I opened my notebook, the same one I'd hidden under the floorboard a week earlier. I wrote, "They don't see me. Then I'll make sure when they do, it'll be too late." I started logging things, dates, who said what was moved, what was missing, what was mine and no longer mine. This wasn't about playing the victim, this was documentation. My voice wasn't gone, it was just waiting for the right moment. My silence wasn't weakness, it was ammunition. The voicemail came in just after lunch. I didn't recognize the number at first. It was one of our old neighbors, Mrs. Lacey, who had moved a few streets down when her husband passed. Her voice was bright, chipper, too excited to be calling me. "Just wanted to say I can't wait for the housewarming this weekend. So happy for you and your sister. You both deserve it." I stared at the screen long after it stopped playing. Housewarming? There was nothing on the calendar. No heads up, no group text. I hadn't heard a single word about it from anyone under this roof. At breakfast the next morning, I brought it up like it was casual. Nothing in my tone hinted at the burn just beneath the surface. "Hey, did I miss something? Mrs. Lacey called about a housewarming?" Mom didn't even look up from her coffee. "It's just a little something for Marisol and Dominic." "You're always so quiet anyway." And just like that, 28 years of being her daughter shrank into background noise. "She's around, or not," Mom added to no one in particular. I sat still, toast untouched, hearing the words echo even after she stood up and left the room. That afternoon, I did something I rarely do. I opened Facebook. Marisol had created a private event, celebrating new beginnings, the Vale home. I hadn't been invited, not by accident, not a missed message. I was never meant to be there. Scrolling through the photo album, I felt like a stranger watching a family that used to include me. There she was, Marisol in a floral dress, holding a glass of champagne, toasting with our mother on one side and Dominic on the other. The caption read, "To stability, to fresh starts." One picture had her holding up a key like it was some kind of royal decree. The comments rolled in. "You've always been the one holding the family together. So proud of you, Marisol." I closed the app and placed my phone face down on the kitchen counter. I didn't smash it, didn't scream, but something tightened deep inside my chest, and this time, it didn't go away. That evening, I came home and walked into the living room. The TV was on. Mom and Marisol were watching a slideshow video from the party. Laughter echoed from the screen. Then something flickered. A moment so brief I almost missed it. A photo I recognized. It was an old family picture from years ago. I was in it. Only now, I wasn't. The version they were watching had my face blurred out, cropped at the shoulders. My space taken by negative space, filled in by plants or light. Later that night, that same frame showed up above the fireplace. The mantle that once held a picture of all of us now displayed a sanitized version of our family. I looked straight at it, then looked at my mother. "It looked better this way," she said, as if we were discussing curtain color. I left the room before I said something I wouldn't regret, but my silence had started growing teeth. Later that night, while they all slept, I went back through my emails and bank statements, cross-referenced dates, found the wire transfer I'd made, $10,000, partial closing costs on the refinance. The email confirmation was still there, dated, signed, and stamped. The name on the receipt, mine. I called the title office first thing the next morning. "Hi, I'm trying to confirm something on the title of a property I helped fund," I said. The woman on the other end pulled up the file. "According to our records, your name was not included on the final title update." I swallowed hard. "Was that a clerical mistake?" She paused. "No. It says here the exclusion was specifically requested by the family representative on file." I asked for the name. Marisol V. Kavanaugh. I ended the call. Wrote the name down in my notebook, folded the page in half, drew a black line through the center, then underlined it. The next morning, the house felt different. Still. Too still. Mom handed me a cup of tea like she hadn't iced me out for months. Her voice was light, like none of it had happened. The tea was too sweet. I took a sip, nodded, said thank you. I watched them move around the house I paid to save, laughing, rearranging pillows, planning events. I didn't belong here anymore. That part was clear. But now, I wasn't asking for space. I was going to take it back. The envelope was thick, heavy, the kind you see used for weddings or baby showers. It was lying on the kitchen counter next to a fruit bowl filled with fake pears. I picked it up and turned it over. No name on the front, just Mr. Mrs. Kavanaugh. Inside, cream cardstock, gold trim, embossed letters. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Marisol Vale Kavanaugh and Dominic Allen Reyes. No mention of me. Not on the envelope, not in the RSVP card, not even on the family insert tucked behind the schedule. They'd invited the world and omitted me." I walked into the sunroom where Mom was clipping coupons like the lights weren't flickering in our lives. "Why didn't I get an invite?" I asked. She didn't look up. "It's not that kind of wedding." I held the card in my hand, twisting it between my fingers. "Apparently, it's exactly that kind of wedding," she sighed. "You're always so sensitive." I turned around, card still in hand, and left without saying another word. Later that night, I sat in the laundry room with the hum of the water heater as background noise. Opened the wedding website, typed in my last name. Under close family attending, I wasn't there, but the dog was. Marisol's golden doodle had a custom RSVP slot. Dominic's stepniece from Vermont, who I'd never met, had a profile photo. But me? Nothing. Then I scrolled down, saw a section labeled Vendor Coordination Team, and there it was. My full name, under Support Staff Coordinator. I blinked. They hadn't just forgotten me, they'd made me staff. I screenshot it, saved it to the same folder where I'd been filing receipts, emails, photos, the one labeled Keep. The next morning, I waited until after breakfast, caught Marisol in the hallway near the upstairs bathroom. "Just wondering why I'm listed as staff for your wedding." She blinked, then smiled like a politician. "Oh, that? You were always helping with details. I thought it made sense." "You could have asked." "Your family. I didn't think we needed formalities." Mom's voice echoed from the kitchen. "You've always made everything a big deal. Let it go." She didn't mean anything by it. Marisol chimed in, too sweet to be real. "You were supposed to know you're invited. You didn't need a card." I bit the inside of my cheek, nodded, let it simmer. That weekend, during a brunch they hosted for family and out-of-town guests, Marisol stood up with a glass of mimosa and delivered a little speech. "I just want to thank everyone who helped us get here. This wedding means the world to us. And of course," she turned to our mother, "none of this would have been possible without you, Mom." She raised her glass. Everyone clapped. I stared at my plate. The same plate I'd helped pay for when the venue demanded an early deposit last fall. No mention of me, not a glance. I stood up and left before dessert. Back in the laundry room, I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest. I reached for the handkerchief I kept folded in a tin box, my father's old one, the one with the stitched initials. I unfolded it, held it like it might anchor me, then I grabbed a pen and a pad, made a list. Everything I'd given, every dollar, every hour, Every time I showed up when they didn't ask, but always expected. When I totaled it up, the number made my chest tight. It was nearly everything I'd saved for the last 3 years. I whispered to the room, to myself, never again. I sent a short email to the wedding planner. Please remove my name from all internal materials. I will not be attending the wedding. Then I shut my laptop, packed a weekend bag with just enough for 2 nights, and left before anyone could ask questions. I drove an hour out of town to a small lakeside inn, rented a single room, no TV, no signal, just trees and quiet and my own breath. I turned off my phone. Left it on the nightstand. The silence was thick, but not heavy. I sat by the window, opened my notebook, and wrote one line. They didn't forget me. They chose to write me out. Then below it, in smaller print, I still exist, and they'll remember that soon. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sky had already dimmed into that bluish gray right before sundown. The lake retreat had given me something I didn't expect. Clarity, not comfort. I wasn't rested, but I was ready. I grabbed my small suitcase from the back seat and walked up the porch steps like I had 100 times before. Slipped my key into the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again. Firm grip, deeper breath. Still nothing. I knocked. Once, then twice. The porch light flicked on, and after a moment the door creaked open just a crack. Mom stood behind it, one hand still holding her coffee mug. "Oh," she said flatly. "We had to change the locks. Dominic's been nervous about security." She didn't even open the door all the way. I looked down at the key still in my hand, the one that used to open this door, the one I paid to keep in the family. I didn't say a word, just nodded once and walked back to my car. Slept there that night, under the old oak in front of the house I used to call mine. The next morning, I woke stiff and sore, my neck aching from the angle. My phone buzzed. A text from a church deacon. "Your mother fainted during service. She's been taken to county hospital." I drove faster than I should have, parked crooked in the emergency lot, bolted inside, hair still damp from the bottled water I'd used to rinse off in a gas station bathroom. At the front desk, I gave my name. The nurse typed, paused, then looked up. "You're not on the contact list." I blinked. "She's my mother." She glanced back at the screen. "It lists one emergency contact. Marisol V. A. Kavanaugh." My jaw clenched. I stepped back, phone in hand, already calling Marisol. She picked up on the second ring. "What is it?" "I'm at the hospital. They won't let me see her." She let out a slow, measured sigh. "She doesn't need more stress right now." The line went dead. I stood in that lobby long enough for the nurse to stop making eye contact. Then I walked out, slow and deliberate, the heat of humiliation rising in my chest like bile. Instead of heading home, if I could even call it that, I turned toward the edge of town. Pulled into the narrow lot of the storage unit I'd rented when I gave up my apartment. It smelled like cardboard and regret. I dug through a rusted filing box and found what I was looking for. The original refinance paperwork. My name, my wire transfers, my signature, and another envelope, one I didn't recognize. I opened it and found a power of attorney form, signed by my mother. But not in my name. It had been voided, replaced by one bearing Marisol's. I sank to the cold floor. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just folded every piece of paper, placed them in a manila envelope, and wrote in black ink across the front. Proof. That night, I parked outside a grocery store and connected to the free Wi-Fi. Checked my email. Nothing urgent, nothing personal, nothing from them. Then a group text came in, from Mom. "Let's all remember this week is about love, not drama. Marisol needs our support." I scrolled through the replies. Aunts, cousins, second cousins, everyone chiming in. "She's the only one who's ever kept this family together." I stared at the screen. Then I pulled out the list I'd written days ago, the one detailing everything I'd done for them in the past year, line by line, dollar by dollar. This time, I didn't tear it up. I printed everything I had, emails, receipts, texts, the POA, the title filing, each page neat and clean. No highlighters, No notes, just facts. I labeled the folder, Facts Speak Louder. The following morning, I drove to a law office at the edge of town. No appointment, just walked in, waited, and when a paralegal asked what I needed, I said, "I'd like to review the legal status of a quitclaim deed I signed last year." She asked for documents. I slid the folder across the table. She flipped through them, pausing only once. "You're more prepared than most," she said. I nodded. As I walked back outside, sun warming my face, I whispered to myself, "They erased me. Now let's see how they handle being ignored." I came back that morning only to grab one document. That was it. A copy of a receipt I'd left in the hallway cabinet, something the lawyer said she needed to finalize the review. I parked across the street and sat for a minute, watching the windows of the house I used to defend in arguments, paychecks, and silence. Inside, I walked past the foyer toward the hallway and stopped. The big frame that had hung there for 20 years, the one with all of us standing in front of the fireplace on a 4th of July long gone, it was gone. In its place was a newer photo, crisp, color-balanced, professional. Marisol stood at the center, Dominic beside her, Mom and Dad smiling like the world hadn't cracked at their feet. I didn't need to look hard to notice what wasn't there. Me. I stood for a while, long enough to hear Marisol laugh faintly from the kitchen. Then I whispered to myself, not for the first time, "They've already buried me while I'm still alive." I walked to my old room, or what was left of it. The closet door was halfway open, half filled with wedding decor, white bows, centerpieces, table number cards. I pulled the shoebox from the top shelf, the one labeled Misk. Inside were pictures, old birthday cards, some ribbons from elementary school. Most of the photos had been untouched, some had not. Sharpie lines ran through my face in a few. In one, my name was scratched out from the back. On a card I'd written in crayon as a kid, "To Daddy, from your princess," someone had crossed out the return name. Probably not recently, but still. At the very bottom, folded neatly, was a card. "To my baby girl, love Dad." I sat on the edge of the bed and held it. Not like it was evidence, like it was breath. 2 hours later, after I dropped off a bag of clothes at the community shelter, I ran into Mrs. Patterson at the Goodwill Donation Center. She used to work for us, cleaned the house every other Thursday until her knees gave out. I hadn't seen her in years. "Darlin'," she said, like I'd just stepped out from school again. "You still got those eyes that see too much." We talked a few minutes, small things, the kind of words people share when they know a lot without needing to say much. Before we parted, she pulled something from her purse, wrapped in an old napkin, a picture frame. "I kept this," she said. "Don't ask why. Just didn't feel right tossing it after your mama threw it in the giveaway pile." It was the original family photo, untouched. I hadn't seen it in a decade, but I knew the look on my face from memory, standing beside Dad, not quite smiling, not quite lost. "You were always the one with the kindest hands," she said. "You folded every towel like you were holding it for someone who needed comfort." I nearly broke. Back at the storage unit, I laid everything out across the concrete floor. Papers, photos, receipts, records. Opened my laptop and labeled folders. Property, legal, erasure. For the first time, I wasn't documenting pain. I was organizing a case. I opened a blank affidavit draft and started typing. My tone was factual, the words sharp, measured. In the margin, I wrote, "To silence a voice is temporary. To erase a life requires complicity. I won't give them either." It wasn't about rage anymore. It was about evidence. That night, before sleep, I took out the card from Dad and a fresh sheet of paper, and I wrote a letter to my younger self. "They will pretend you were never here, but you were. You loved hard. You gave more. And now, you will not vanish quietly." I folded the letter and placed it inside the envelope with the card. Didn't seal it. No intention of mailing it. Just needed it close. They might have redrawn the picture. But I was the one holding the original. The voicemail came in just after breakfast. I was sitting in the car outside the storage unit, drinking bad coffee and rereading the same receipts I'd printed twice already. "This is Carla from the law office," the voice said, calm and clipped. "We reviewed the deed transfer. There are some inconsistencies we think you should see in person. I stared at my reflection in the windshield, the same tired face I'd been waking up to for months. Then I turned the key in the ignition. I didn't put on makeup, didn't fix my hair, just pulled on a clean white shirt, tucked the documents into a plastic accordion folder, and drove. I wasn't walking into that office as the girl who begged to be seen. I was walking in as the woman who paid the bill. Carla met me at the front with a neutral smile and led me to a side conference room. She slid a folder across the table. Inside was the original quitclaim deed, my signature, dated and notarized. Right below it, stapled in a separate packet, was a second document, different handwriting, different tone, one I never signed. It named Marisol as the sole owner. Carla waited a beat, then spoke. That second document's not enforceable. It's not on record, and it was never submitted through proper channels. I flipped back to my deed. There it was, my contribution, my signature, my presence. So, legally? I asked. She nodded. It's yours. That other version won't hold up. I didn't feel relief. Not the kind you cry about anyway. I felt steel settle in my spine. Then it's time to speak the truth, I said. That evening, I returned to the storage unit. Box labeled personal was buried under a pile of blankets and old work shoes. I pulled it out, dug to the bottom, and found an envelope I didn't remember keeping. It was padded, postmarked nearly 3 years ago. Inside, folded carefully and sealed in plastic, was a letter. My father's handwriting stared back at me, dated 6 months before he died. He talked about how he hadn't always done right by me, how he knew I carried more than anyone ever asked, how he was sorry for the mess he left behind. You're the one who carried the weight while the rest of us pretended not to notice, he wrote. And then, one final line. One day, this house will be yours in every way that matters. I didn't cry. I held the letter to my chest and closed my eyes, not because it fixed anything, but because it reminded me I wasn't crazy. Back at the table, I spread everything out. Deed, emails, text messages, receipts, and the letter. I placed the letter in a separate folder. On the front, I wrote, Final Anchor. I drafted 3 emails. First, to Marisol. I'm not asking for anything. I'm correcting the record. Second, to the family attorney. Please prepare a cease and desist. I am reclaiming legal ownership of the property immediately. The third was to myself. And subject line, they won't take me out of this house twice. I hit print on everything. Paper after paper slid into the tray like pieces of a puzzle that had always been mine. The next morning, I parked across the street from the house. I didn't go in. I placed the registered envelope inside the mailbox. On top of the documents, I added a photograph. One Mrs. Patterson had returned to me. The original family picture. My face intact. I didn't ring the doorbell. I didn't wait to see if anyone would check the mail. As I walked back to the car, I said aloud, quiet but clear, this house remembers me, even if they don't. I woke up to a blinking phone screen and a dozen notifications stacked like bad headlines. Marisol had posted something overnight. A long, neatly polished story on Facebook with a photo of her standing in front of the house, a soft filter laid over her face like a halo. The caption read, Families are messy, but truth is always complicated. Underneath, one comment caught my eye before it disappeared. I'd seen it long enough to grab a screenshot. Some people help once and expect a lifetime of gratitude. The name was blurred out now. Deleted. But I had it saved. I didn't yell. I didn't post some manifesto. I just clicked into the comments and typed 5 words. Gratitude isn't the issue. Erasure is. Then I closed the app and went back to my coffee. But the internet didn't. Within hours, the post had spiraled. Some defended her. Others started asking questions with my name in them. Old friends, church people, even one of Dominic's cousins. By afternoon, I had 5 DMs from people I hadn't heard from in years. One from my old choir teacher who wrote, I always knew something wasn't right with how they treated you, but I didn't know how to help. Another, from one of Marisol's exes, simply said, "You were always the one holding the house together, even when they pretended you weren't there." I didn't feel vindicated, just seen. And honestly, that was enough. I replied with short thank yous, closed my messages, and leaned back in the folding chair at the edge of my storage unit. The metal rattled under me. Then came the visit. 3 days later, I walked up the driveway to the house, not alone this time, but with a sheriff's deputy and a man in a tie carrying my legal papers. No drama, no shouting, no cameras. Inside, the lawyer handed over the documents, calmly stating what the court had ruled. My name was on the title, sole ownership, effective immediately. Blythe refused to come out. Marisol stayed upstairs. Their lawyer spoke on their behalf. I didn't demand anything. I just looked at the deputy and said, "Let them keep what's inside. I came for what's mine." I walked through the foyer one last time, picked up the original framed photo Mrs. Patterson had given back to me, the one with my full face, and took the potted fern from the back patio, Dad's favorite. That was enough. A week later, I moved into a quiet apartment downtown. 1 bedroom, lots of windows. On the wall near the dining nook, I hung that same photo, alongside the framed handkerchief with his initials, GK. It didn't feel like victory, but it didn't feel like loss either. Mrs. Patterson came by for tea. We sat for an hour, talked about old recipes, politics, how she'd once stolen an ashtray from a motel in Amarillo just to make a point. We laughed. That night, I opened my laptop and started writing. Title of the document: What They Erased, I Reclaimed. No plan to publish. Not yet, but it felt good to put it down. A few days later, I visited Dad's grave, laid down the letter I'd kept folded for weeks. I didn't reread it, just pressed it flat beside the headstone and whispered, "We weren't perfect, but I'm still your daughter." And I walked away, smiling, not because everything was fixed, but because none of it had power over me anymore. Inside the apartment, morning light hit the edge of the framed handkerchief just right, soft, still, mine.